Hari Om. Greetings from Hornbad Meinberg. That's the real name of where I am right now. Hanover. Some of you are thinking, where's Hanover? Germany. If you don't know where that is, then a different workshop is required. For how much all of us have received, we hardly return what we've received in terms of looking after our health, in terms of caring for the environment, in terms of making use of our opportunities. For how much we have received, we hardly return that. I feel this became more apparent in 2021, after our first year of schooling from home, working from home, and so on. In 2021, it became more apparent to me, maybe to everyone, about how fortunate we are to have Zoom, to have healthcare, to have history of travel and learning and so on. And so I challenged our community to try to match what they're receiving with what they're returning. And many took up this challenge. Many who were serving, they started to serve almost 50% more. And from this, in 2022 came our parenting culture space, our Prithvi Seva Sangha, our mentorship Sangha. And these and many more offerings are all being facilitated in a personal way. Later on, when you listen to our presenters, our sharers, they're all seekers in our community. They're all seekers I know well. One of them I got married to. And it's not just personal, it is professional also. It is for this reason that we released a podcast on our parenting culture space. We have YouTube channels filled with presentations on the environment, speakers in terms of wellness workshops. So much so, we really wanted this to be personal and professional so that we have playlists where seekers, where communities can actually have study groups on the environment, study groups on parenting. So personal and professional. And this is very much aligned with the theme of our workshop this evening, which is work as sadhana, where you make this personal and what comes from this is a professionalism. Pujya Swami Tejomayananda has shared, see life as a whole and live a whole life. See life as a whole and live a whole life. And this is very much extracted from Bhagavad Gita's chapter 13, the one we just completed in Meaningful Mornings. See life as a whole, yaha pashyati. And live a whole life, saha pashyati. How one can live work as a sadhana is for one to live sadhana. And the more one is living sadhana, this term work, it's dismantled or dissolved into sadhana. And sharing this in a different way, how do you know what the highest purpose is. Think. I know it's Sunday night for you. For me, it's Monday morning. It's harder. How do you know what the highest purpose is? You know the highest purpose when you don't have any other purposes. Now think of everyone who was in school, is in school. As soon as you complete your education, what do you feel? Now what? What's the next degree I should have? With work, even more, our professional work. You move to this city, you move to this position. Now what? Some people do that with children. After 2, now what? You know your purpose when you don't have another purpose. And the only way that we won't have another purpose is when we're happiness. When you're happiness, are you going to ask, now what? That's illogical. I had just returned from Houston, and I had shared with all of our high school students there on a theme, how to be happiness. They're all so used to being happy, not realizing that's a limitation on their potential, which is to be happiness. One comes and goes. One is their nature. Our team had asked me to speak about personal philosophy of mine on how I treat work as sadhana, what grounds me. Some insights into this is when we feel work and sadhana are different, the language we use in the world is we have personal goals and professional goals. All that we experience is being tired. Our personal goals go in one direction, our professional goals are in another direction. You just feel tired. It's like you're using Google Maps or a Garmin to get somewhere, but it just keeps sending you in an inaccurate place. The first time you feel, okay, fine, it was a mistake. But then the second time, the third time, the 10th time, it's just tiring. And so what I try to do is infuse the sacred into the secular. I don't have a personal goal and a professional goal. I don't have sadhana and work. I try to infuse the sacred into the secular. This feeling of service, devotion, and so on. And my experience from this is it's not tiring, it's energizing. You care less about eating. You care less about sleeping. You care less about being liked, and so on. Because you're only tuned into that which is sacred, that which is closer to the spirit. You may have heard this before. Where there is change, there is challenge. Challenge plus purpose equals training. When one has the purpose of all is sadhana, when one has a purpose that all is a means to happiness, then every experience one goes through is training. Challenge minus purpose. Can you remind me what that is? I've forgotten this equation. Can you share in the chat? What is challenge minus purpose? That's right, a problem. Problems at work, problems at home. Yaha pashati saha pashati. This is all a matter of vision. Zooming into this marginally more, and then we have many better speakers who are going to share their experiences. Vivek tries to live not for a person, but rather for a purpose. By living for a person, there are deficiencies there. By living for a purpose, it can be perfect. And so the purpose that I try to live for is joy. that highest purpose. And by doing so, what happens is ananya bhakti. One becomes more balanced, more focused. And this is why in our culture, we share that one who lives for their guide, for their map, for their divinity, they are not a person, they are an institution. They are not a person, they are a presence. When I was flying to Amsterdam yesterday, I watched a movie called Judas and the Black Messiah. How many of you have seen this? Okay. It's an intense movie. And the Black Messiah is communicating to his pregnant wife that I'm not living for a person, I'm living for a purpose. I'm living for equality, to bring equality. And it was really lovely, and it was hard for her to absorb, but she did absorb that. And that's what made him a Black Messiah in reference to this movie. Now, my final thought in shifting from an overall thought on work as sadhana, a macro thought to a micro thought. What helps me to feel all is sadhana is to nurture the habit to not waste time. By not wasting time, one does feel all is sadhana, all is training. How we cannot waste time, we have to develop our own systems. That's why I called this a habit. We all form habits in different ways. So we have all our own systems, but not to waste time. And a way to encourage us to not waste time is to reflect more. Sometimes I find interacting with parents, interacting with people who work in professions, they live in a dangerous way. And that dangerous way is they don't know how to slow down. They don't know why they're parenting or working. So reflecting more checks you. Why are you doing this? In inquiring into the why, your purpose becomes more authentic and deep. And so you feel more energized. Okay? Work is sadhana. There is no work. There is only sadhana. Your sadhana is to be joyous. Tune into this by developing the habit of not wasting time. Pausing here, our team will continue with the rest of our shares.
Hariom. Hariom, thank you for Vivekji, and Hariom to everyone joining us tonight. We're really excited to jump into this topic of work as sadhana and continue the discussion. And actually, we're excited this forum is going to be a little bit unique, where we're going to hear from some of our community members who are part of our mentorship Sangha, and they're going to share about their own personal philosophies, how they approach their work as a means to spiritual growth, or how they approach their schooling as a means to spiritual growth. So we'll have 4 speakers, and we'll start with Vignesh.
Hariom, everyone. You can hear me, see me clearly?
Yes.
Wonderful. Grateful for this opportunity to talk with you all. My name is Vignesh. The kind of work that I have the opportunity to engage in on a daily basis is in medicine. So currently I work as a resident doctor, specifically in a psychiatry training program. So essentially providing medical and mental health care for folks in a hospital setting. So now this great grand question of how to make work identical with sadhana. So as Acharya Vivekji shared, this is all related to the sadhya, or the goal of happiness, of independent joy, of smiling unconditionally. So the sadhana is the path that I see towards that goal. And I think the insight that inspires me most on a day-to-day basis is what Bhagavan Krishna teaches in the Bhagavad Gita as Karma Yoga in chapters 3 to 5. And I think the framework that Vivekji has shared with all of us that is most simple and tangible for me is the RA, I guess, to the 4th power framework, which goes right action with the right attitude leads to the right Atma, or self-knowledge, which naturally expresses the right ananda, or that happiness, unconditional happiness. And so, in day-to-day work, I think most of us, the right action is there. We're not engaged in things that are immoral or actively harming people most of the time, or I hope I never do that. But I think what we focus on is, how do we do something that externally seems good with the internal attitude that is also spiritually oriented and is helping us grow spiritually. So focusing on the right attitude, for me, it's anything that is not focused on me. So in Advaita Vedanta, there's this very grand picture of oneness where it's not there's God and then there's the rest of us. It's God only manifesting in all these different names and forms. So anytime in interacting with another person, the highest ideal or intention that I can invoke is to worship or to serve God in this person. So that would be the kind of right attitude that I try to invoke. The right Atma, which follows from that, is rather than coming into the action, kind of putting a lot of pressure on myself and thinking I'm the doer, I'm the one who's kind of controlling all these things and the results. I remember that I am actually not the doer at the very deepest level. It's God who is functioning through this body-mind. And that helps me feel more like the instrument. God is the driver, I'm just the passenger, kind of enjoying the ride. And then I think when I engage in work in that way, the right ananda naturally flows. I think it's just more peaceful. I feel like I'm growing. So that's the basic framework. Does that make sense? I hope that wasn't too convoluted. The right attitude, right atma, naturally leading to the right ananda. So now I'll share a quick story from today, actually, that I think illustrates how this looks like in my day-to-day work. And heads up, this is a story where I think I have room for improvement. It's a way that I can continue to grow in this regard. So I was admitting, this is I think a usual occurrence. I'm admitting someone to our psychiatry unit. They needed mental health help in the hospital. And everything was going smoothly until the person I was caring for found out that they couldn't bring certain belongings to the unit for safety reasons. And as soon as they found that out, they became very upset. Understandably, they weren't expecting that. And they direct that anger towards me. Sorry, Vikji. And so immediately they kind of raised their tone of voice. They were yelling, they were using profanity. And my immediate reaction was I kind of like took a step back. I was very kind of caught off guard. And the whole conversation seemed kind of confrontational. I didn't really effectively de-escalate the situation. More people needed to come in to help the person feel more calm. And when I was reflecting on this situation afterwards, I realized that in the heat of that moment, I forgot the right intention and the right atma. I forgot that I'm not here to get praise from that person or to have that person say, oh, thank you, doctor, you're so helpful. I'm here to serve the divine in them, whether that divine is yelling at me or whether that divine is thanking me. And I also forgot the right atma because I was thinking so much about how can I fix the situation rather than thinking, how can I kind of express God through this interaction or manifest that oneness? And so I think it's just part of the process of having these experiences, reflecting on how, whether it is or is not in alignment with our kind of sadhana framework. And then, the next day, tomorrow, hopefully, I'll do a better job. And, when I reflect on it as a big picture, I don't think there's any better training that we can get in these kind of real world, in our day-to-day work in order to really erase the ego in us and feel that joy. So grateful for your attention. Hari Om.
Hari Om. Thank you so much, Vignesh, and really appreciate your thoughts, and especially that thought around, seeing the divinity in other person and how your workplace offers you that opportunity every day. All right, let's move on to our next speaker, Neha Kale.
Hari Om, everyone. Hari Om, Vivekji. Pranams to all fellow seekers. Really grateful to have this opportunity to share a little bit about how Vedanta has been guiding me in my work. So I wanted to start out just by talking about how I chose my line of work. I spent a lot of time working in international marketing in the transportation sector for General Motors for several years before sort of realizing that selling more transmissions wasn't the thing that was getting me up in the morning. It wasn't like lighting me up. And so I intentionally pivoted to work in the social sector and really found my passion to work in education. And that pivot, it wasn't very simple. It sort of required letting go of a false sense of security that a big organization can bring. It required a lot more education. It required making a financial sacrifice at the time. But looking back, it was one of the best decisions I've made. And I was reflecting on that a little bit because I've found even with some of our closest friends, individuals follow a path often because it's the path that they were told to follow, they were expected to follow, they decided to follow at a really young age. And I find it a little fascinating because we often don't give ourselves permission or the opportunity to sort of rethink and adjust and change our work with our evolving interests, with our evolving priorities. And we've been so fortunate, as Vivekji has been guiding us, to really simplify our lives and prioritize peace. And with that clear direction, we as a family have made some choices. And, you know, when I transitioned from independently consulting in education to now working for a global school with multiple campuses around the world, I opted in to take a pay cut. And I also requested, you know, additional flexibility in terms of my capacity, and I'm working 80%. And all with the intention that it gave me the time that I needed to fulfill my responsibilities the way I wanted to fulfill them, the space to really dedicate towards my own development, space I needed for seva and reflection. And I recognize and fully acknowledge that I have been and I'm incredibly privileged to have that choice. But I suspect many of us have that privilege, you know, of good health, education, and financial stability with some of our basic needs that are met. And so perhaps there are ways as seekers for us to continue to simplify and really make choices in our work to bring us a little bit closer to peace as we evolve in our own journeys. And then secondly, irrespective of the line of work we fall into, we choose, I think we also influence how we can work. And again, really eternally grateful for what Vivekji has shared with us often in terms of, you know, our life has been custom designed for us by our Creator. And when I began to truly internalize, accept, and personalize that as the truth, that's really when every context became that opportunity created for my own evolution. And it has helped me adjust my perspective so much so that when I'm going through a challenge, whether it be at work or home, I can intentionally shift into learning mode and really start asking myself, like, what is this challenging experience meant to teach me? So a really small example, you know, there's an interaction with a colleague that triggers me. Now I'm noticing my frustration. I'm acknowledging that I'm getting triggered, and I'm quickly moving into like, how can I use that interaction to actually practice patience? How can I recenter myself so I'm responding, I'm not reacting? And my focus is beginning to gradually shift towards sort of managing myself so that I can avoid getting triggered in the first place. So that perspective of everything is happening for me, not to me, even at work, has really allowed me to utilize some of those opportunities that I have to learn and reflect, and really to apply some of the practices that bring me closer to the values that I think I aspire to really live by. And by no means does any of this feel easy or simple. It's something I'm essentially like striving towards very intentionally. moving away from being controlled by my context. I think that's clear to me, that I don't want to be controlled just by my context anymore. In one tactical way, in case it helps, I keep this sort of in the forefront, is by just adding reminders and tasks in Outlook. Like in my Outlook calendar is where like all of life happens. And so it really allows me each day or each week to pause and think about, is there, whatever value that is that I'm really focused on that week, have I really like pursued it? How can I be more intentional in it? Where did I fail? Where did I have some successes? And so it just helps me be a little bit more intentional, I think, in my practice. And I'll just conclude by sharing that I'm working to find essentially additional ways to simplify and to prioritize peace in all aspects of our lives, whether it's at home or work, because as Vivekji has shared, when we're peaceful, when we're happy, when we're present, all that's around us suddenly becomes really meaningful. So, Hariom.
Amazing. Thank you, Neha. Love that philosophy of simple living, high thinking, and just approaching work with so much intentionality. Awesome. Let's go to our next speaker, Sheetal. Sorry, Sheela. I'm thinking of Sheetal. Sheela is our next speaker.
Hariom, everyone. So nice to be here. Thank you for thinking of me. So I am a household manager, mother, and then lastly, immigration lawyer. I do US and Canadian immigration law. I really do see my work as being more auxiliary to everything else that I do. So yeah, my immigration work takes up about 20 to 25 hours of a given week. And everything else is devoted to managing the house, being a mom, being a wife. And the values, when I was thinking about this topic, I like breaking it down into kind of not a framework necessarily, but like, what are the values that guide my work on a day-to-day basis? And even thinking about that is sort of intimidating because it forces you to think about like, maybe you don't even have values that guide you, but you're like, hold on, there has to be something I'm doing here that's applicable to my work. So it really got me thinking. One of the first things that came to mind, and this is something that Swami Tejomayananda said in a group many years ago, and it was that no one is indispensable. And I've always come back to this when thinking about the priorities in my life and my important responsibilities. There was one point in my life where I thought, dance could be maybe a professional thing in my life. And now when I look back, it makes so much sense that I wasn't supposed to do that because there was an immense sense of doership when I was dancing. And because of that, because of that ego, there was, competition, there was an attachment to my body. There was just, no real good that could come out of it at the time. So now when I think about my work in all of the different facets of my work, I can truly appreciate that I am not indispensable and that, so many other people could be doing what I'm doing. And I keep a altar of Guruji and of Hanumanji at my desk. This was done by my aunt. I really like this sketch. Anyway, so, it's in my sight. And when I look at it, it really is a good reminder of staying humble. And I'm just reminded that I'm physically and mentally able to do what I'm doing. And for that, I am so grateful. And so I should treat my work as an offering and nothing more than that. I don't have to take it so seriously, even though at times all of us can appreciate that work feels serious, life feels serious, but that's something I've been trying to appreciate more, that this is an offering and that's how I should treat this. Another principle is that work is a part of my life. It's not my life. Specifically with respect to my immigration work, it is a means to an end. And that philosophy has helped me so much in just getting an understanding of how much work I should take, which clients I should take on. it's helped me understand what my priorities are. Another important value is balance. And I think you can't think about balance unless you know what your priorities are. So it's important to do a priority check, I think, every now and then, especially if you're married. If your priority is traveling and lots of comfort, having lots of things around you to make you happy, then naturally you need money to finance that lifestyle. So or being a trust fund baby, I don't know. But I don't think there's anything inherently wrong with that and having those desires. So we have to be careful not to label, what's good and what's bad. If you have those desires, exhaust them. But it's important to know what they are, because if you're confused, like you think, oh yeah, my desire is like just sadhana and that's what I want. But if you're not there yet, don't trick yourself into believing that's who you are. And I think I'm very aware of that now. I always want my priority every day, one of them to be like sitting down, contemplating. And I've now really understood I cannot fit what I thought I could before into my space right now. I cannot. So I have to make work my sadhana. There's no other choice. And to me, what that means is finding ways to improve in every single task I'm doing, whether that's washing the dishes, whether that's listening more intently, whether that's, researching properly. So I think I remember reading that in an article about like Olympic athletes or something like that, just about how, if you really want to see improvement in yourself and you really want to realize your full potential, then you need to work at those small tasks in everyday life. So that's something I've really tried to embrace in, as a mother, as a wife, and with my work. One other thing, this is something I shared, when Vivek and I were doing like a Q&A in Portland. And ever since I shared that, it sort of stuck with me when thinking about work and everything else. And it's to pause, listen, reflect, and share thoughtfully. I'm going to give you an acronym, PLRST, as Vivek would do. I feel like this has helped me in so many ways, just to take a pause and think about what you want to share. That way you're able to share a little bit more thoughtfully. So when I think about the hardest jobs in my life, it's probably kids, and then marriage, and then my immigration law work. So specifically when it comes to being married, this has helped me so much because, instead of letting your ego get out of control and feeling like you have to engage and respond right away and assert yourself, you really don't have to. And when you don't do that, I think you're able to just think a lot more clearly. That's something I think can be used, in the workplace with anyone, really, with all aspects of life. So I found that to be very useful. When I think about a few experiences where I'm using Vedanta. So one is, I made this terrible mistake, very recently. It was probably several months ago. And biggest mistake in my career, there was a point where I thought malpractice, like, I don't need it. It's just this like expense. But I honestly thought at this point, oh my God, thank God I have malpractice, because this person is going to sue me. And, luckily that hasn't happened yet, but it was, because of me, there was this couple who was apart for a lot longer than they needed to be. It was quite bad, quite serious. But, I realized when you hire someone, there's got to be an understanding that there's going to be some margin of error here. It made me really think about like, okay, what are their expectations? How did I fulfill them, or not fulfill them in this case? But I appreciated that it's okay to make mistakes. And once you do everything everything you can in your power to, rectify it, to make things better, then there's nothing else you can do. And that's where faith really helped me here. I did the best that I could. I really tried to make it up to them. And then at that point I said, okay, I have to let go. Like, where is my mind space going here? I'm putting so much energy and thought into this for what? Like, I can't do anything else. So, and faith is something that's helped just so much in my life. There was a time where it was really like dwindling when I had kids, and, now it's coming back, that faith. So thankfully, yeah, I was able to really rely on that in that situation and appreciate that, you're supposed to be where you are in a given moment. And it's okay that things like this happen. Another experience that happens a little too frequently in my practice, is dealing with a client who has some sort of trauma in their life. And of course, I have to get pretty involved in that. This is difficult for a few reasons, but what I've realized is, going back to my previous point, everybody is in the situation they're in for a reason, and they're supposed to be in that situation. So I've tried to understand that everyone's circumstance is different, and there's nothing I can do other than what I can do. So do my best and leave it at that. I also try to, another reason this is difficult is just because these thoughts and memories will often come into my mind. That's the reason I don't watch like horror movies or movies with disturbing content with Vivek. Because they'll just enter my mind, like when I'm sleeping or whatever it is. So when that happens, there was a time where I would just get very immersed in that thought. But now I think I've become a little bit better at like sweeping that thought away with my like intellect broom and just appreciating that it's just a thought. And yes, this happened. Yes, it's awful, but there's nothing, that's it. This happens. This is life. This is the world. And these are the people I have to deal with sometimes. So not making it more than it is. Like what exactly is my mind space going to do? What exactly is this taking up mind space? Rather, what is that going to do for this client? Nothing. What is it going to do for me? Make me take it out on my family, probably. So that's something that's helped me in general with clients that are difficult to sort of think about and linger on. I think that is all. Thanks for the time.
Thank you, Sheela. Love your faith in the bigger picture and kind of taking a step back and seeing that bigger picture at play. Awesome. And we have our last speaker, Mukul. And Mukul, I can share your slides as well.
Hariom, everyone. Nice to meet everyone, and thank you for this time to speak. So today, I just wanted to share a little about my journey of where I've gotten to. A lot of it has been covered by a lot of other people, but hopefully I can shed a different light on the way I take this approach. So just a little about myself. I've been working as could you go back? Yeah, thanks. All good. I've been working as a mechanical engineer for the past decade, and then in April, I actually left my job and taking a break, and I'm currently in school for massage therapy. So that is quite a different shift, but hopefully I can share the method in this madness that comes from Vedanta. So next slide. So to share a little initial story of like how I got started down this path and like a little initial spark. Of course, memes are my favorite way of conveying things. So initially when I was in high school, college, and then started working, I was following society's path to success, which was to go to college, get good grades, get a good job, make money, and be happy. So I was down that path. I got a job at Boeing. Life was supposed to be set. But I don't know, it felt like something was missing in those first couple months and starting working. I just didn't get that fulfillment, which was hard because people would always say, oh, you work at a great company. You should be happy and all this stuff. And so something wasn't clicking. What came to me after some time of understanding was maybe I need a new job. So I did some exploration, joined a rotation program. And then from the end of it, I found out I wanted to do something to help people more. So I figured, let me switch technically into robotics engineering, and then that can help give back to people. So went to school, did my master's in mechanical engineering for robotics, and then fast forward, got a job in robotics. And then later on in 2022, next slide. I was still not feeling that fulfillment there. Like I was working in robotics, the things that I wanted to do. And so luckily over the last years and previously, I had seen lots of other resources out there that have helped like stick with me when going through this exploration. Things that were within the community, like the things on the right. We had the wellness workshop last year with Sharanya Rao, talking about aligning Swadharma and career, as well as Vivekji has mentioned this concept of Ikigai, which I was introduced to. And combining that with some of the stuff from my past, I was able to think of it in a new way. So like, for instance, I read the book, The Alchemist, and I love this concept in there about the finding your personal legend. And that really stuck with me because in the Bhagavad Gita, we talk a lot about, Krishna Bhagavan talks a lot about this idea of performing one's own duty is very critical. So I kind of knew that stuff. And I was in this situation where it was like work was going up and down. And I was thinking, is my dharma to persevere and push through it despite all these ups and downs? Or is that like a sign that says this is not my dharma? And then at the Boston Chick retreat a couple of years ago, we read the book Braiding Sweetgrass. And there's this beautiful chapter in there called The Three Sisters, where there's this concept of 3 different crops, squash, corn, and beans, all being grown together. And when you grow them together, each of them are giving a different unique gift that helps all 3 flourish way better than they would if you grew them individually. So the author, Robin Val Kilmer, does this great description on sharing why if we all give our unique gifts, the world will do much better. So that kind of really ignited my passion, started doing some realization that I do feel like this is not the right fit for me and that there's something more out there for me. So I started some career coaching and self-exploration. And from that, found that I kind of wanted to do a slash career where I would still continue with mechanical engineering, but I wanted to focus on my other core values of helping people more through health and wellness. So to start that type of practice, my first step was to do my licensing in massage therapy. So hence I started that program. Next slide. So through this journey and experience, I come up with a couple personal work mottos. So just wanted to share those with you. The first is I had always thought that the ideal job was a destination, but it's not a destination, but a journey. As others have mentioned, we have to consistently reflect and introspect because life is changing, we're changing. And so just making sure that whatever you are doing still aligns with your highest goal, your dharma, and what you want to get to. And then while you're doing that reflection, the things that I focus on particularly are my why, like why am I doing this? So the idea of core values, what is important to me, and then my identity. I think I struggled with that a lot. I think it was hard for me to leave engineering because I was like, I am an engineer. How can I not be an engineer? But letting go of that society influences and needs was definitely helpful, and having a coach, Sharanya, walk me through that was very nice. And then combining those into determining what my overall dharma is and what my work approach should be. So I think society pressures or my self pressures had always said like work is the most important thing, and that's what we kind of define life as. That's one way of approaching things. If you find that job that is my swadharma, I can go 100% into it, or I can live a life of dharma and then finding a job that helps me sustain that method of life is all fine. So it's all what's right for me. And that kind of leads me to the last takeaway, which I learned was that there is not one path to success as defined by society. You don't have to go to college. You can find your own way. You don't have to hopefully you study hard so you get good grades, but that's still not the end of the thing. And having a good job is very subjective. Finding what that right thing is for me, what it is for others is very critical for each other. So thank you for listening. Hopefully you can take something away.
Amazing. Excited for your pivot, Mukul. Like you said, it's a journey, but very awesome to hear. If there's any questions for our speakers, we could take a few questions and dig a little bit deeper.
For me, I struggled with that question a lot. And what I did was I had like a career support group, and I would talk and bounce ideas off of my family, friends, mentors, or other spiritual mentors as well. I asked lots of questions to Vivek about these types of things and other similar people. And what I came down to was we do have to fight through the small struggles, but when there's a significant shift out of my own alignment with my job, that's when I realized it was time for me to move on. So like, for instance, with my job, I could get through a lot of these disturbances, but then I realized to what end? Like I was going to help sell a little more in e-commerce or do something like that. And I realized that that wasn't fulfilling to me. I would rather be pushing very hard for something that helps the betterment of the world. So that's when I realized that that was not the right shift. So I was looking at the bigger picture.
The only other thing I might add is for me, it was really obvious what was steering me towards working in like the transportation sector. It was like the security, it was like the travel, it was all these like glitzy things that were starting to fade away because they weren't fueling like my inner purpose. And so for me, the way I knew is I actually took a leave of absence and I went and taught in a school in rural India for 6 months, right? So I didn't make this jump like just like, okay, today I'm in transportation, tomorrow I'm in education. I actually took like a 6-month leave of absence, tried it. And having spent that time doing the work, I knew from the inside, like that is where I wanted to be. That's the difference that I felt like kept me in flow, or I don't know how to explain it, but it's like, it spoke to me. It was something that was like, it felt like passion. And so that helped me figure out where I wanted to go next. Happy to share. I mean, it's literally like I have time blocks at certain points, like at noon, it'll be like the thing I don't do well is solitude. So like Vivek had asked us in one of the classes to be like, are you focusing on solitude? Are you enjoying it? Right. And so it's like a daily reminder for me to be like, did I spend any time in solitude? Like, and like enjoy it and willingly like reflect, etc. And so there's things like that. And then there's like little practices like of like, so in parenting class, he had asked us to do like Om Samarpayami, right? So every time I would put my daughter down to sleep, which was quite a challenge at the time, I would like, every time I put her in the crib, I would say Om Samarpayami. So it's like finding ways that like integrate, as Sheela was saying, like in your day, like the things that you have to do anyway, finding ways to put those practices in. And for me, because so much lives in the calendar, I have time blocks, I have tasks, and then I'll just check it off every day to be like, I didn't do it. But at least that's a moment of reflection to say, I need to work on this the next day.
I loved, Vignesh shared this a while ago. I can't remember where I heard it, but it was smile unconditionally, smile without a reason. And so, you know, what you're going through is temporary, number one, but even if it wasn't, like, just think about how this is such an amazing opportunity that you have. You're able to study, you're in school, like you're able to learn. That's pretty incredible in itself. I probably sound old, but I think just smile, be happy where you are. You have the privilege of being where you are, be happy about it. And if that's like saddening to you, then know that it's temporary.
Yeah, I think that's insightful, Sheela. Another thought that comes to mind is, I think like the big picture that Sheela was talking about, it helps you, not take the stresses of like, tough classes and stuff too seriously. Like, for example, if I'm in a really hard class and I know that my end goal, let's say, is to serve society in a particular way, I'm not going to like bust my brains out if I'm like super worried that like I'm not going to get the highest score or something like that. It's like, okay, I'm going to take what I can to like use this and to serve someone in a meaningful way later on. And then the rest of it, like, whatever, I'll try my best. I'll leave the rest. The other thing that comes to mind is, while we're students, there's a lot of other downtime outside of studying to explore our interests in a meaningful way that might be even more directly related to your sadhya or your goal. So for example, for me, even though I was studying engineering in college, one thing that really issue that I was really passionate about was for folks who were incarcerated and how, they have it's a very unjust system for those folks. There was like a volunteering opportunity to work with folks who are incarcerated and like do tutoring and stuff like that. It wasn't really related to my major at all, but I think it was very related to the sadhya. And I think that brought a lot of fulfillment to like my day-to-day as a college student.
Oh, that's funny. It was really a joke. It's not really an acronym, but the idea is, I think, in any aspect of your life, whether it's like household responsibilities or your career, dealing with anyone really, any sort of like conflict, or not even conflict, but a situation where you have to respond, your response might be required. It's just to pause, listen. This is a very important thing. I mean, for me, I'm like, my impulse is just to share immediately. And so it's a lot of work for me to stop and to really listen to what the other person is saying without forming, a thought and a response in my mind. And then taking time to reflect. So specifically, and the reason I talked about marriage and my kids is because like, this is my job. Like that's what I look at my job really as. It's a mom, it's, being married. And then, immigration work is kind of like a side hustle. And the hardest part about marriage and dealing with children is that communication. So pausing, listening, really trying to connect with that other person, understanding what they're trying to convey, reflecting on your own. And then when the time is right, I think this is the key part here. When the time is right, you share. So don't share right away, especially if it's something that's contentious, but just wait until it's the right time. And typically how that works with Vivek and I is we say, hey, there's something I need to talk to you about, or hey, can I talk to you about something regarding the kids? That way you're preparing that other person for something that may not be like, pleasant, constructive criticism. So that's what it was. Pause, listen, reflect, and then share thoughtfully.
Hariom, everyone. Just to run through a few quick announcements. Like Pooja mentioned, it is our mid-year now. And so we are, looking to expand our program. So if you have any friends or family that would like to join our mentorship Sangha, or if you haven't already joined and are looking to join, we'll share the link in the chat for you to sign up and register for that. Another save the date that we have coming up is on August 15th. We have a forum, our first ever interfaith forum. And this is going to be an opportunity for us to learn about different dharmic religions. And again, that's on August 15th, and more registration information will be coming in the next month or so. And lastly, our Prithvi Utsava, which is on July 16th. Some of you may have seen the poster go out. If not, I think that's also going to be shared. But this is where a few acharyas, including Vivekji and some artists or activists and artists, are all coming together to celebrate our Earth. So please do register for that. And that again is on July 16th. And with that, I will bring about Zui, who's going to share a special announcement with you all.
Hariom, everyone. Who of you, like, oh, maybe I don't know if that's right grammar. Do you prefer working with people with similar values? If yes, give me a big nod and a big smile, right? If we're being able to work with people with same values. So that is what this next opportunity is for us all. I think Kanchan is helping me share this screen. It's Pioneers for the Planet Challenge. It's for anyone under age 30 to apply, where it's an opportunity for you to serve and learn for environmental impact. You research an idea, you develop an idea, and implement it. There's an award associated with it. And you can form a group of mentees if you want. You can work with your friends in general and find an adult supporter for the challenge to support you in that process. And The deadline, the most upcoming deadline related to the challenge is July 1st. So if you submit your soft pitch, you might get an opportunity to actually present your soft pitch at Prithvi Utsava. And I guess Deepo just now spoke about it. Some awesome artists. We know our speakers are awesome and great. I think Shankar Mahadevan is coming live and Shan is coming live on Prithvi Utsava. So submit your soft pitch, think about it. It's literally an opportunity to try out Karma Yoga with people with same values. So consider applying. That's Pioneers for the Planet. Thank you, Deepo.
Thanks, Sui. And thank you all for joining us this evening. And thank you so much to all of our speakers. And with that, we'll conclude the evening with one Om. Hari Om, everyone. Good night.